The first one that always comes to mind, I guess, is Todd Haynes' Safe with
Mhm.
Julianne Moore from 1995. It's more about paranoia and disease, but it's about someone who is forced to isolate herself for a number of reasons. She develops an environmental illness, or at least thinks she does. It's very ambiguous, deliberately so, whether it's a psychological or a real physical problem. And it's about someone whose world gets smaller from the beginning of the film to the end of the film until she's basically contained in her own body and has nothing and nowhere else. And it's always struck me as being very much about someone who desperately wants to connect to the rest of the world but can't. And whether it's because she's physically unable to, or because her mind won't allow her body to participate in the world. I've always found that really potent. I remember seeing it in a theater, a great big empty movie theater, and being trapped with it in the dark and just feeling the same sort of shortness of breath and terror that Carol White, that Moore's character, is going through. It's what is it, 27 years old now? I think it's just as valid as it ever was, especially given the fact that we've all been forced into isolation on one level or another over the last couple of years, and are struggling to find ways to communicate that don't involve just screaming into the void. Or maybe that's just me. The greatest thing about movies right now is that everyone has access to them. So the fact that so many distributors have embraced streaming, and the prices are reasonable for those streaming services, or even just a VOD purchase, still cheap. It's $25 to watch West Side Story on Apple Television or Google Play Movies, and that's still cheaper than 2 tickets to the theater. So if a family wants to see a movie, they can experience it at home in a reasonable presentation for very little money compared to what it would cost to go out to an IMAX room, which I think is a really great moment in the democratization of film, assuming, of course, that everyone has broadband and a 4K television and all of that. I'm obviously better equipped than some, but the fact that it is now possible through social media also to discuss and experience things collectively, I think, is the real doorway out of isolation for people. Just to know that people are seeing the same things you're seeing, discussing them in the same forums that you have access to. I think that's the real change in the last few years, where just as we all became isolated, it became possible to experience things collectively, individually, in isolation. And we're doing this over Zoom, which again wasn't even a thing I would have considered doing 2.5 years ago. I was doing interviews by phone and the sound quality was garbage. I was doing podcasts in person and insisting that someone else's movie be recorded in person because there was no way, I could not imagine it working over the phone. And I've done one episode over the phone, and it was excruciating. And you really need to see people's faces and interact with them when you have conversations about art, at least for the purposes of the work that I do. So this has been an absolute salvation. It would not have been possible to do my job without this sort of communications technology. And just as movies became siloed and isolated and broken off into individual experiences, we found ourselves talking about them again this way. And it's not as good as the real thing, but I haven't had an interpersonal conversation with an artist that lasted more than 20 minutes in 2 years. And I'm really looking forward to doing that one-on-one again. But this will do for now.